There are 5 levels of power. The majority of men will never advance beyond the first. They'll die faceless, submissive, obedient, confusing survival with strength. But those who make it to the last one become something else. They are not rulers, they are not kings. They are the designers of rulers. Their names disappear, but their orders resonate. They're shadows that move nations, and they leave no fingerprints. This is not an inspirational tale. This is a handbook, a hard one, and it starts where most people end. Level 1. The helpless. The helpless man doesn't even realize he's helpless. That's the genius of the system. He believes his thoughts are his own. He believes his decisions count. He thinks that the liberties he holds onto were awarded out of justice, but they were issued on a whim, because a man who believes he is free will police himself. He will live in chains that are invisible and protect the hands that made them. The powerless subsist on routine and reaction. They react, they consume, they obey. But tell them why they get up, why they toil, why they endure, and they cannot answer, except to recite someone else's script, because I must, because that is life. These aren't solutions, they're shackles masquerading as wisdom. Look closely. They infill cities, they infill schools, they infill churches and occupations and arenas, and yet when you actually look at them, they are interchangeable. They are the masses, the grey mist that provides cover for those on top. The powerless man is not characterized by a lack of skill or aspiration. He is characterized by obedience. He awaits direction. He seeks sanction. He dreads to be alone in his head, because if he uses his own head, he will be exiled to the outside by the mob. So he remains silent. He laughs when others laugh. He nods when others nod. He curves his back to live, never knowing the price of that living is his soul. Worse than that, the weak deride the strong. They toss stones from below and name it virtue. They say ambition is evil. They describe discipline as poisonous. They sentimentalize weakness because they are reminded of what they've refused to be, and so they come up with coping philosophies, religions that sanctify suffering, ideologies that punish rising, politics that pay dependence. They fake their resignation as morality, but power without morality is tyranny, a uniform worn by those too cowardly to fight. Observe them. Their existence is dictated by fear, fear of rejection, of risk, of punishment. But the most paralyzing fear of all, the fear of responsibility, for if they acknowledge they are not powerless, they would have to act, and action is abhorrent to a man who has based his life on waiting. The helpless feel the system owes them something, that justice is a universal law, that someone somewhere will ultimately pay them back for their pain. But pain is not money, obedience is not righteousness, and hoping is not strategy. The man who stays at level 1 will forever be exploited, his work, his time, his focus, all leased out to the highest bidder. He is a receptacle, a mule, a body to be inserted into the machine, and when that body fails, it's replaced without apology. No history book recalls him, no monument commemorates his sacrifice. He lived in obscurity, he died in obscurity, and the world went on unaware. Now ask yourself something, not as a listener, not as a viewer, as a man. Where are you on this ladder? Don't tell me what you want to be true. Tell me the truth. Are you living reactively? Do you wait for someone to determine for you what is important? Do you scroll, nod, agree, follow? Are you just praying, life gets better, because you've suffered enough? Powerless men don't feel weak. They numb, they tire, they confuse tired with effort. They label busyness as progress. But powerless progress is no progress at all, just motion in a circle, such as a horse on a merry-go-round, round and round, never forward. If you recognize yourself in this level, no shame, only warning, because those who remain here don't merely lose the game, they never know there was a game to be lost. They confuse perseverance with intelligence. They think living through it will make them clever. But consider this, if you've made it this long, and you still feel empty, still feel nervous, still feel expendable, then what have you truly created? Survival is not achievement. Perseverance is not meaning, and compliance is not virtue. Wake up time. Level 1 is not your cage, it's your welcome. And beyond them are the minds who govern, manipulate, command, and disappear. If you're to rise, you have to stop telling yourself lies about where you are. Power starts in clarity, and clarity starts in pain. But clarity is dangerous, because once you know the reality of your position, you can't unknow it. And the moment a powerless man knows that he is powerless, he is at a choice point. Stay numb or wake up. If he wakes up, he enters level 2, the enforcer. This is where the majority of men who taste power first land. They are still not free, but they are no longer dreaming. They have gained strength, bodily, monetary, social, but be clear, strength without strategy is simply graceful servitude. The enforcer serves, he executes commands, he maintains the system, he can climb the ladder of rank, but never the pedestal of sovereignty, and worst of all, he thinks this is the height. The enforcer is alluring because it gives the appearance of control. He has the uniform, he bears the badge, he controls people, he barks orders, he feels admired, but dig deeper. His authority is on loan, he does not possess it, he gets to use it, provided he does what's above him in the hierarchy. He is powerful, but hobbled, dazzling but disposable, and when the command shifts he obeys, even if it goes against everything he used to believe in. And so many soldiers, managers, officers and foremen exist in silent agony. They are relied on, yet never masterful, admired, but not autonomous, trusted to carry out, never to challenge, because when they think too hard, they become a risk, and still there must be an enforcer. Systems can't exist without him. The higher-ups rely on his loyalty, his reliability, his willingness to submerge his own ambition for the rewards of status, and he makes this bargain. For recognition, he gives up independence. He gains structure but forfeits vision. He gains authority, but not authorship. That is why so many men construct lives upon patterns of dominance, not to command, but to feel strong. They dominate their homes with intimidation. They issue commands to subordinates. They fixate on rules and penalties. But all of it is a facade for the one secret they cannot handle. Someone else pens their decrees. You find them in every corporate office. The middle manager who enforces others with pride. The officer who upholds laws he secretly doubts. The dad who copies discipline but dreads his own obsolescence. The enforcer holds on to duty because it provides him with a script. He dreads the silence because in silence he may hear his own doubt. He dreads introspection because he may see how much he traded for structure. He watches the gate, but never asks who constructed the gate, or why. He shatters the backs of other people for the benefit of rules that he himself did not pen. And when the more powerful powers change their agenda, the enforcer is required to smile and oblige, regardless of how it demeans him, because that is the price of borrowed power. When it isn't your own, it can be taken away at any time. There is one indicator, however, a slight fissure in the armor that indicates the enforcer is prepared to transcend. It is disillusionment, that bitter realization, when the respect he worked so hard to gain starts to ring hollow, when the medals, the promotions, the applause can no longer drown out the question in his mind, is this it? That moment is holy, because only a man who has tasted power but lost faith in respect will be able to reach the next level. Only a man who has known control but understood that he was still being controlled will dare to break rank, and breaking rank is the beginning of freedom. But beware, this way up is not heroic. It is not lauded. When the enforcer questions the system, he is a danger. The very hands that have applauded him now point the finger of accusation. He's labeled disloyal, arrogant, threatening. And so most enforcers remain in place. They stifle the questions. They muffle their own minds. They guard their paycheck, their job, their grade, but they know it deep inside. They know they've exchanged truth for title. They know they've become forceful machines, powerful but controlled, orderly but replaceable, worthwhile but expendable. The enforcer is not weak, but he is constrained, and that box is made so well that the majority never even attempt to escape. They decorate it. They speak highly of it. They create careers and families within it. But if you're after true power, the kind that is sensed in the quiet moments, the kind that warps reality without yelling, then level 2 isn't where you end, it's where you start to notice. Look at the structure, look at the strings, look at the men who never show up but whose prints are on everything. You have the guts to question, you hear the emptiness of applause, you are beginning to understand that power and obedience are not synonymous, then you are ready to meet the next level. The one that the enforcer dreads, the one that can't be ordered, because it operates in shadows and gives orders in whispers. The man who doubts the order, but hasn't yet established one of his own, enters the most unstable plane of all. Level 3, the schemer. This is the plane of masks. Here, crude obedience dies, and something worse is born. Crafty self-interest. The schemer doesn't obey, he manipulates, he reads individuals like blueprints. He exchanges truth for benefit. He listens more than he talks, flatters more than he provokes, and observes each gesture not for significance, but for advantage. Power isn't seized at this level by force. It is siphoned in secret, drip by drip through influence, persuasion, and strategy. And yet, in all of his guile, the manipulator is vulnerable, because to deceive, you have to remain in the room, remain visible, remain necessary. This is a level that pays intelligence, but penalizes attachment. The manipulator cannot afford loyalty. Not really. Alliances are temporary. All smiles are balanced. All talks are negotiations, performances, rehearsals for dominance. He flourishes in courts, in corporations, in revolutions, wherever structure is present. But the throne is always insecure. He is the favorite of kings, advisor to CEOs, confidant to generals, but never the king himself, because his power is based on shadows. He is the whisper behind the decision, the one who sows the idea, deflects the blame, spreads the rumor, creates the enemy. But if the light ever shines fully on him, the illusion is destroyed. Influence only works when no one is suspecting it. The moment you're caught scheming, you're marked. The danger of this level is not failure, it's success without foundation. The schemer is often the smartest man in the room, but he can never stop scanning that room for threats. He fears exposure, he fears being outplayed, he trusts no one, because he sees too clearly how trust is used, and so he spirals inward. He accumulates secrets like coins, favors like ammunition, relationships like policies, but rotting inside. Because a man who can no longer be himself, who must constantly play the role, forgets who he was prior to the mask. And when that occurs, even his triumphs taste hollow, wins arguments, but not tranquility, wins allies but not devotion, reaches the ladder but never knows whether he will be yanked from underneath him tomorrow. But the schemer is needed. Power systems rely upon him, because he does something that the enforcer cannot: bend minds rather than bodies. He initiates changes in culture, in coalitions, in public opinion. He moves people without putting up his hand. But his tragedy is this: by acquiring so much power, he forfeits all security. His authority is only intention. The instant he holds his breath, he's expendable. The king starts doubting him. The people start resenting him. He's the natural scapegoat, because everyone knows he's smart, and being smart, unguarded, is inciting fear. Mostly in the end, all schemers get killed with a knife in the back, or a whisper behind the name. They're not remembered for being wise, but for being suspect. Their gifts turn against them. Nevertheless, some men adore this level. They adore the thrill of being wanted by the more dominant. They adore playing both ends, collecting money, dominating discourse, and for a time they thrive. But take a closer look. The highest level scammers aren't really pursuing power. They're escaping irrelevance, because they've experienced proximity to greatness, but cannot abide the cost of entering into the light. They like being necessary in the dark, better than sovereign in the truth, for sovereignty is accompanied by blame, revelation, danger, and most plotters, for all their cleverness, are still afraid. They'd sooner manipulate the king than be the king, because the king is out in the open, and being out in the open makes you a target. But if you hearing now are a plotter, or sense the plotter stirring within you, there is still a door, a small one. It demands sacrifice, not of your thinking, not of your plotting, but of your addiction to invisibility. It takes getting out of the game and saying, what if I ceased to mold the room and began to claim it? What if I ceased to counsel kings and became one? Even if it meant being hated, pursued, revealed, that is the price of transformation. And only those willing to lose their edge, to risk being perceived, blamed, questioned, ever move on to the next level, the level of seeable authority, the crown, the throne, the position that plotters are afraid of, because it will not hide. But those who survive it, those who walk through the fire and stand, they demand more than whispers, they demand worlds. To move from manipulation to command is to walk into fire. The schemer uses influence as a shield. The ruler stands out in the world's full view. This is level 4. The ruler, no more deceptions, no more whispers, no more deniability. The ruler has to say it, has to do it, has to be held responsible for every effect his voice creates. His power is not borrowed, suggested, or hinted. It is asserted, and that pronouncement brands him for worship, for jealousy, and for assassination all at the same time. Because when you are king, the knives are no longer secret. They arrive with smiles. They arrive with applause. They arrive masquerading as friends, advisors, lovers, and they wait for the moment you flinch. The monarch has what the plotter dreads, visibility, but he pays in what the plotter loves. Security, power at this scale is not founded upon leverage, it is founded upon presence. The ruler is the state, the company, the movement. His name becomes law, his face becomes the symbol. But with that burden, one miscalculation, one mistake, a hint of uncertainty, a wrong prediction, and the crowd turns. Because the crowd does not adore the man, it adores the concept of the man, and the instant he lets down that notion, he turns into a villain. That is why kings live in perpetual paranoia, not that they are mad, but because they observe what everybody else refuses to accept. Loyalty is fleeting, admiration is superficial, and the very same people who will raise you up will rejoice when you crash. And yet the king has to act. He cannot wait, cannot hide, cannot deflect. All that he does remakes the order below him. That is the privilege of this rank, the power to construct, no longer plotting in darkness, now planning in light. A visionary ruler can give birth to an epoch. A blind ruler can kill one. That is why history remembers rulers, not advisors, not generals, not enforcers. It recalls the name that signed the proclamation, commanded the army, gave the speech. The crown immortalizes or disgraces you, and the difference between the two is smaller than most have any stomach for. But make no mistake, being a king is not the highest rung. It is still a position. It is still a part, and parts can be filled. The king, however great, is vulnerable. He has to perform, he has to lead, he has to justify. And each day he does, his enemies hone their stories, the ones lurking in the darkness, who never show, never voice, never. They observe. They learn from the mistakes of the ruler. They hoard his failures as money, because they know a secret. The ruler cannot dare speak. The visible throne is not the seat of power, it is the lightning rod. And so the ruler has to toughen. He is taught to smile in being betrayed. He is taught to reward silence and punish the unpredictable. He learns that a kindness needs to be calculated, or else it will be turned upon him, and in doing so, something dies. The part of himself that used to want to be loved dies, not in bitterness, but in necessity. Because power once gained requires emotional detachment. The leader must be wise but not simple-minded. He must inspire but not rely. He must hear but never require consent. And if he cannot solve this contradiction, he is a puppet, a figure manipulated by the strings of those whom he cannot identify. But most men fantasize about this kind of level. They aspire to the glory, the praise, the applause, They desire to be heard, seen, crowned, but they do not know how much it costs. They imagine that they are envious of the king until they notice how little rest he enjoys, how each speech is measured, how each friendship is a calculation, how each demonstration of power is also an invitation to prove oneself. And so the majority of men dream of ruling, but recoil at duty. They desire the advantages of monarchy without the weight, and in so wanting, they expose themselves as unqualified. But if you are already standing here in this fire, if you understand what it means to order and bear the burden of those orders, if you experience the isolation of the top spot and have yet to crack under it, then you are nearer than most ever come. The ultimate level does not wear a crown, it does not reside on a throne, it does not issue speeches or decrees, it is not seen, and it warps the ruler, the schemer, the enforcer, all of them behind the curtain. That plane is not for those who are after admiration, it is for those who are after staying power. The most powerful man in the room is never in the room. He raises not his voice, but men murder in his name. He shows not his face in portraits, yet regimes go the whole way to accommodate him. This is level 5, the puppet master. He is not the king. He is the reason kings are necessary. His power is not visible, but palpable. It resonates in choices others believe they made on their own. It waves through laws others think they authored. His greatness is in disconnection, in the power of control without possession, writing without signature, governance without vulnerability. He does not demand. He builds situations in which individuals pick what he has predetermined. This level of understanding means letting go of self. The puppet master does not desire praise. In reality, he dreads it. Admiration is a flaw. A title can be aimed at. A role can be taken away. But a myth, a force, a legend behind the scenes, that is immortal. The puppet master endures because no one can demonstrate he's there. His fingerprints are all over the place, but his name is missed. If you attempt to reveal him, you're paranoid. If you manage to do so, he already has an understudy. That is the genius of genuine power. It does not attach to one body. It runs. It reincarnates in systems, symbols, surrogates, like a virus without a cure, because it infects within the host's own DNA. He speaks through other people. The CEO who promotes an impulsive acquisition, the politician who turns his campaign slogan on its head overnight, the cultural icon who alters the narrative with a single tweet. These are not accidents. These are plans, and the majority will never question it. They will argue over the symptoms, never follow the source, because the source is too silent, too suave, too entrenched. The puppeteer does not worry about rebellion. He produces it when needed to reboot the system, to eliminate threats, to remind the ruling class that their hold is least. He understands that all manifest power will ultimately create resentment. The crown is a target. The billionaire becomes the villain. The general becomes the tyrant. But what you can't see, you can't shoot. What you fail to name, you can't overthrow. And so he hides behind foundations, behind advisory boards, behind offshore bank accounts, behind cultural influence. He pays both sides. He subsidizes rivals. He speaks softly to kings, then provides asylum to their enemies. He plays long games, generational games. While others pursue quarterly breezes and campaign seasons, he stages centuries. But grasp this. Not all schemers become puppet masters. Not all kings can vanish. To achieve this level calls for one last death. Death by identity. The puppet master has no face, no permanent loyalty, no ideology that holds him. He is malleable because he does not belong. He is trusted by all, but owned by no one. And that is why he survives. Because loyalty at this level is transactional. The relationships are disposable. Even self-concept has to be malleable. He can't afford pride, only results. This is the ultimate, hardest, purest expression of power. To move without having to be credited, to dominate without having to be noticed, to vanish and still determine the result. Most men can't envision it. Their ego must be recognized. Their pride demands recognition. They want to be thanked, praised, feared, and that's precisely why they are vulnerable, because they leave trails. They seek approval. They crave the feeling of power more than its results. But the puppet master is unique. He'd prefer to lose credit and maintain control. He'd prefer to be forgotten and yet be feared. He'd prefer to rule in silence rather than reign in noise. That makes him untouchable, because nobody conceives of combating what they cannot perceive. Nobody mobilizes against a whisper. If you traveled this course from faceless horde to loyal enforcer, to calculating manipulator, to solitary king, and now find yourself gazing into this pit of pure detachment, ask yourself, do you want to disappear in order to triumph? Do you want to exchange your name for legacy, your face for power, your fame for eternity? Most don't. Most must be seen to know they exist. But they who survive this last change become something else. Not men, not rulers, architects, ghosts, immortals, the ones who build civilization but hide in its records. And if you have read this far, it's because something in you already recognizes you were never meant to remain powerless. Something in you has pierced the deception and no longer wants to obey. You've caught a glimpse of what power actually is. Not the kind they package for you, not the boisterous performative kind, but the kind that gains momentum in the background, that doesn't need permission. And the second you looked at it, part of you started to shift. Now the question is no longer if you will get up. It's whether you're willing to vanish so you can rise with no limits, ever.